Pam Bondi, a seasoned prosecutor known for her tenacity and unwavering commitment to justice, entered Judge Howard Gates's courtroom with a thick file of evidence under her arm. The case involved a wealthy real estate developer, Charles Lawson, who was accused of illegally funneling government funds into his private projects. The courtroom wasn't particularly crowded that day, but those present could sense the unusual tension in the air. From the moment Bondi approached the plaintiff's table, Judge Gates displayed remarkable hostility. He barely acknowledged her presence, flipping through papers with deliberate slowness before finally addressing her with unconcealed contempt. "Miss Bondi, I assume you prepared something of substance today? Or should we just skip ahead to the part where you waste my time?" His words drew snickers from Lawson's legal team, setting a tone that was far from the impartiality expected in a courtroom. Bondi maintained her composure despite the judge's provocations. Each time she attempted to present evidence, Gates found ways to belittle her work and interrupt her arguments. "Do you always insist on drowning people in paperwork? Or is this just your way of compensating?" he remarked at one point, causing visible reactions throughout the courtroom. Reporters exchanged glances and began taking more detailed notes. The jury, though trying to remain impassive, couldn't hide their surprise at the judge's unprofessional behavior. As the hearing progressed, Bondi began to notice something troubling beneath Gates's hostility. This wasn't just a judge being difficult. His reactions suggested personal involvement. When she tried to present financial records showing irregularities in Lawson's projects, Gates became visibly agitated. He called her to the bench and whispered a veiled threat. "I'd strongly suggest you reconsider the direction you're taking here, Miss Bondi." But Bondi wasn't intimidated. "I don't scare easily, Judge Gates," she replied before returning to her position. The turning point came when Bondi displayed three crucial documents. The first showed a contract between Lawson and the City Planning Board, listing costs of about $2 million. The second revealed internal ledgers from Lawson's company, showing actual transfers of nearly twice that amount. The third document, which caused a palpable shift in the courtroom atmosphere, contained Judge Gates's signature approving these unauthorized transactions. The defense attorney's smug expression vanished instantly. When Gates desperately tried to rule this evidence inadmissible, claiming it was obtained improperly despite the proper subpoena, Bondi made her decisive move. She pulled out a small recorder and played a conversation clearly featuring Gates's voice. "Take care of it. I don't care how. Make sure she doesn't get her hands on those ledgers." The courtroom fell into shocked silence as the recording ended. Bondi followed this bombshell with a transcript of a wiretapped conversation, where Gates explicitly promised to prevent any evidence against Lawson from reaching court. "We'll take care of her. Bondi doesn't have anything solid yet, but if she does, I'll make sure it never sees the inside of a courtroom." By now, even the bailiff and court stenographer were struggling to maintain their professional demeanor as the extent of the corruption unfolded before them. Judge Gates, once commanding and intimidating, now appeared cornered. His eyes darted toward the exits, and when Bondi gave a subtle nod toward the back of the courtroom, two uniformed officers entered. "Judge Howard Gates, you are under arrest," one announced firmly. The officers approached the bench as cameras clicked and reporters scrambled for their phones. Gates sat frozen, his authority crumbling before everyone's eyes as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. "You can't do this," Gates muttered, his voice lacking its earlier confidence. "Sir, you are being taken into custody for obstruction of justice, conspiracy to commit fraud, and abuse of judicial power," the officer responded calmly. Gates struggled against the restraints, his face flushed with anger and fear. "This is a disgrace! I am the law in this courtroom!" he shouted. Bondi, finally standing, replied simply, "Not anymore." As Gates was escorted out, the wealthy developer Lawson began to panic visibly. His face had gone pale, and his hands trembled slightly as he gripped the edge of the defense table. "Wait, wait," he called out desperately. "This is getting out of hand. We can work something out." His words betrayed his guilt more clearly than any evidence could have. Bondi approached him with measured steps. "You seem nervous, Mr. Lawson. Why would that be?" she asked, letting the question hang in the air as Lawson struggled to formulate a response. With Gates gone, the courtroom felt transformed. The prosecution team sensed the shift in momentum, with one colleague suggesting they push for a plea deal. But Bondi had larger ambitions. Standing before the empty judge's bench, she formally requested a full investigation into how far the corruption reached. Judge Gates was only part of the problem, she declared. If my team could uncover this, it means there's more. More names. More people who thought they were untouchable. Faced with the collapse of his protection, Lawson finally cracked. If I do talk, I want protection, he said, his earlier arrogance replaced by desperation. Bondi nodded. Then you'd better start talking. The courtroom buzzed with activity as the bailiff called for order, and preparations were made to continue the trial under a new judge. As reporters rushed to file their stories, everyone present understood they had witnessed something momentous. A rare instance where the powerful facades of corruption crumbled in real time. The case against Lawson would continue, but more importantly, Pam Bondi had exposed a system that had operated in the shadows for years. Her actions that day sent a clear message echoing through courtrooms and backroom deals across the state. No one, regardless of their position or connections, was above the law.